Hello everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, your assignment today, and we're going to be looking at another subscriber chart reading. And in today's video we're going to be exploring our Pluto 8th house soul, and we're going to be learning a lot more about what it means to have Mars in Aquarius, and all the different types of ways that this chart can reveal to us the soul's evolutionary path. And as always, a wonderful opportunity to look at evolutionary astrology and see how it can actually pick up what's the soul's evolution? You know, why is it here? Why are we here? Okay, so let's dive straight into this. Okay, we've got Pluto in the 8th house and it's in the constellation Virgo. We can see that Pluto is also conjunct Uranus here in a new phase relationship. And we've also got Jupiter sitting in the 8th house as well in Virgo. So within the context of Pluto, right, we'll bring in Jupiter and we'll bring in Uranus, but within the context of Pluto, there's a lot of activity around that symbolism over there. You know, as we talked about, Pluto represents the nature of the soul through these attachments, these unconscious emotional attachments that we have that brings us from life to life. And these memories, when we bring them to the surface, we process through them and we experience progressive states of empowerment, right? So when you have Pluto in the 8th house, this element is deeply amplified. It's where the soul has chosen to come into a lifetime and really empower themselves in this way. It's like a double theme when you have Pluto in the 8th house, because the theme of the 8th house in evolutionary astrology is the same as Pluto. It's where we've all got Scorpio in our chart, we've all got a Pluto, we've all got an 8th house. It's where we are basically confronting the deepest parts of our core attachments, you know. So the question why is a very big question that comes along with a Pluto 8th house soul. And generally speaking, when you look at an 8th house dynamic, one of the complexes that arises is psychological states of merging with other people and, in a sense, being lost within the context of being disempowered through other people. In other words, getting into relationships or being in situations and circumstances where you're deeply disempowered by the experience, and you learn to, you know, ride the wave of some lifetimes of being empowered through allowing your sense of self-reliance to be a very important integration point of your life. But then there's also the lifetimes, as I shared, where you can easily be disempowered by an experience, you know, and violations of trust, loss of connection through mistrust, as we talked through the violations that occur, you know, cycles of abandonment and betrayal. Because the theme here is learning how we can trust, you know, how do we open up vulnerability? So the cycle of empowerment and disempowerment is deeply linked with two things. One, the realization of one's own empowerment through self-reliance. In other words, this is where I would like to grow. And so when I recognize something that's outside of myself that could be empowering to me, I would merge with that. And as I merge with that, I become it. You know, Pluto correlates to our DNA, correlates to our RNA, and it is karmically tied. You know, we become osmosed with the experience. So with Pluto in the 8th, that desire nature around merging with something and becoming empowered through it is a self-reliant capacity. It's the ability to teach people to fish after teaching yourself, you know? And the other dynamic, of course, is learning how to trust, what to trust, who to trust, you know? Who's empowered and who's not. All right. So conflict is a natural part of this cycle or this evolutionary intention, because naturally speaking, conflict is where the emotions, the deep unconscious emotions arise. So when you've got Jupiter in the 8th house, this means that the soul is, you know, confronting some really deep core attachments linked with their personal beliefs, whether it be the religion that they might have been conditioned through growing up, or the fact that there's a crisis, Virgo, around the need to analyze the cosmological truth that the soul might perceive about themselves, you know? And you can see over there that with Uranus being right on top of Pluto, again, whenever we look at this dynamic over here, you can see that Jupiter's in the 8th house along with Pluto, so it's deeply conditioning Pluto. And what's interesting, if we just skip ahead for the moment, the south node of the moon sits in the 9th house, right? And the south node is got Venus on it. Venus is in Scorpio. So this is a soul that comes into this lifetime with prior life memories of deep sort of attachments around the values of the certain faiths, the certain belief systems, the ideologies, the perspectives, and that through the comparing and contrast dynamic, right, south node at 25 degrees Libra, learns to recognize what is comparable or not, learning about what faith and trust is and what to believe in and what not to believe in through comparing their truth with others. But somewhere along the line with the Venus in Scorpio, there's a tendency to have either being deeply merged with other truths to the point where there was this sense of codependency that could have materialized, or extremes, merging with different types of belief systems that have very deep, extreme, occult type of perspectives about them. It's not uncommon for a Pluto 8th house to have in different lifetimes worked with occult magic or deep knowledge that would have been deeply empowering to souls that had the ability to manage that. But in the sense of, coming out into the world and reflecting these deeper unconscious truths, it's very easy to be perceived as somebody that's deeply radical or living on the fringe, with that Mars, as I mentioned, in Aquarius in the 1st house, which is actually squaring the nodes. So the difficulty here is to own one's own personal individuation, but at the same time to also be comfortable knowing that part of their individuation process, part of their psychological truth that allows them to understand the deeper layers of their desires is linked with thinking ahead. And thinking ahead can generally create the I'm different to you dynamic, which again then will bring up the whole feeling of the truth that I'm exploring and experiencing could be too fringe-like, and where do I find integration, and the potential to live on the outskirts as a way of not really feeling complete integration into a way of living. It's not necessarily the case that this is showing up in this lifetime, but the potential for those experiences is there just because of the nature of the symbols when they express themselves, in contrast to more of a consensus way of thinking. Now, the challenge here with Jupiter squaring Mercury, and with Jupiter also then in opposition to the moon, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, Jupiter's 5 degrees, moon's at 1 degree Pisces, Mercury's at 3 degrees, is to do with the abstract right brain. Sagittarius and Pisces has a lot to do with abstract thinking, recalling memories of the past or the experiences of the past. So with this type of soul, with Venus on the south node, you can see that there's a very clear expression of memorizing experiences of the past and trying to intuit them through a deep understanding, i.e. recalling. And that's one of the reasons why I believe personally that with Venus on the south node, there's a strong tendency to be orientated towards the past as a way to resolve some of the unresolved material that the soul comes into this lifetime with, which, if you have a look over there, actually is Mars, right? Mars is squaring the nodal axis. In other words, it's actually forming a tension aspect to the nodes. And so in this lifetime, the soul is trying to work with this Mars energy in a way that helps them evolve. But when it's squaring the nodes, it's a tendency to get stuck within the past and the future and not fully commit to whichever node is actually needing to be resolved. And in this case, it's the south node, which we can see over there has Venus on top of it. And then, of course, as I said before, the orientation around Jupiter, Mercury, and the moon being not only one's own personal communication, Mercury, one's own truth, Jupiter, and the way that one sees themselves, the moon, are all around orientation to the past as a way to resolve the desires of the past so that the soul can initiate new cycles of evolution going forward. So With Venus on the south node, it's a deep inquiry into the attachments and the ideologies and the perspectives that are linked with one's own personal beliefs, and then to break away from the codependency around them and to initiate a completely new cycle of truth. And that is, of course, with Mars being the planetary ruler of the North Node in this lifetime, the expression of one's own unique perspective or truth without the need for validation from an external source. Okay. All right. Well, I really hope that you got a lot out of this conversation today. And for you guys that are on YouTube and you're following the series, I hope that this was a video that was deeply satisfying to yourself. As always, my friends, have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.